Luis, yes, good morning. My name is Kendirjian. Welcome, dear guests. Thank you for being here to participate in this wonderful and impactful conference, which will be sparking optimism for a better tomorrow. I'd like to give some background about AGBU Hye Geen. Hye Geen was founded in 1994 under the leadership of Mrs. Sona Yakubian, and its mission was to empower and support the needs of Armenian women throughout the world. I am proud to say that last year, Hye Geen celebrated its 30th anniversary at California State University, Northridge, honoring 30 remarkable women. The conference was about women in journalism, and it was very well received on those present, especially the young generation. Given the rich background, I would like to focus on a few of Hye Geen's achievements. Hye Geen has been challenging norms. Hye Geen continues to raise awareness and personal growth within the community. Hye Geen has engaging events. Hye Geen's events have attracted large audiences. Over time, Hye Geen became essential for advocating the ideology of gender equality. More women began pursuing higher education, and today we have a wealth of accomplished speakers to choose from. Hye Geen has increasing representation. The Hye Geen movement has played a role in promoting women's leadership role and advancement, with women serving as school principals, political leaders, and community chairs more than ever before. Hye Geen has empowerment initiatives. One of the Hye Geen's most significant achievements has been the establishment of the Pregnant Women's Center. Our advocacy had a positive impact on 30,000 individuals in Armenia. In Armenia, AGBU Hye Geen operates its signature Pregnant Women's Centers in 5 cities: Vanatsor, Tallinn, Yerevan, Yerevan, and Charentsavan, and even launched a center in Stepanakert, Artsakh, prior to the 2023 forced exodus of the Armenian population. Each year, hundreds of women and their families are connected to much needed resources and ongoing support, improving mental health and reducing infant mortality rates. The AGBU Hye Geen Committee, based in Los Angeles, works very hard to ensure finances and for the centers. The group invested in promoting research, education, and advocacy for women in the diaspora, hosting conferences, seminars, and events. Hye Geen has maintained the support for its guiding mission of women's empowerment. Today, AGBU Hye Geen stands as a testament to resilience and progress, challenging traditional gender roles. With over 60,000 babies born, AGBU Hye Geen continues to touch lives. Your contribution to the Hye Geen centers is highly appreciated. Hye Geen has established a GoFundMe account. You can help contribute by using the QR code on your booklet or by mailing the check to AGBU Hye Geen. Please make sure you write Hye Geen and not only AGBU. Today we have 3 wonderful presenters with unique expertise and specialties in their field. Mr. Raffi Kendirjian, Mr. Armand Yerjanian, and Mr. Zoryan. Thank you for your attention. Now Silva will have her remarks in Armenian.
Thank you, Puri. Շատ շնորհակալ ենք, շատ ալբոր ներկայացուցիչ։ Ուրեմն ես Սիլվա Կարջյանն եմ, Hye Geen բարեգործականի Hye Geen հանձնաժողովի անդամ։ Գուզեմ հագիրճ ծանոթություն մտալ մեր Hye Geen գործունեության մասին։ Ուրեմն բարեգործականի Hye Geen միավորը հիմնադրված 1994-ին արդեն 30 ամյա գործունեություն ունի։ Հիմնված է Դիգին Սոնա Յակոբյանի գաղափարով եւ իր առաջնորդությունը կշարունակի մինչև այսօր որպես արենաբեդուհի։ Մեր նպատակը Hye Geen-ը թե սփյուռքի մեջ եւ թե հայրենիքի մեջ պետք է իր ցայնը ունենա ընտանեկան, ընկերային եւ ազգային հարցերու շուրջ։ Ուրեմն ուզեմ հագիրճ ծանոթություն տալ մեր գործունեության մասին։ Ամենաառաջ ունենք մեր դասախոսությունները, ունենք մեր դարեկան միաժողովը, որ այսօր բոլորդ ներկա եք, ունենք հերադեսիլի շապատորիա հայդակիր, որ ABC channel-ի վրա կցուցադրվի ուրբաթ օրերը, ունենք դարեկան բարբերաթերթ եւ ամենակարևորը ունենք 9 հղի կանանց կետրոններ Հայաստանի մեջ, սկսելով Գյումրիի մեջ, Վանաձորի մեջ, Եղվարդի մեջ, Թալին, Երևան, Չարենցավան, Սևան, Փերթ եւ ունենք անշուշտ Ստեփանագերդի մեջ, որ այս օրերում կկործադրե Գորիսի մեջ։ Եվ ուզեմ շեշտել, որ այս օրերում մեր Երևանի կետրոնը միան Երևանի հղի գիներուն մատակարարը ավելի նույն ծևով կոգնի Ղարաբաղեն գաղթական հղի գիներուն։ So անոնց բանը իրենց ինչպես կսեն իրենց ծախսը I'm nervous kichman. Եվ մեր գետրոնները իրենց ինչ է նպատակը մեր գետրոններուն, հղի գիներուն սնունդի բժշկական եւ psychological օգնություն տալն։ Եվ ծախսը մեր գետրոններուն ամեն մեկ գետրոնը 6000 դարեկան դոլարի ծախս ունի։ So մեր ցերնակներուն հասույթը մեր գետրոններուն գդրվի, ուրեմն թե հասույթը եւ ունենք մեր անշուշտ մեր նվիրատուները, որ ամեն տարի կշարունակեն իրենց նվիրատությունները։ Ուրեմն այսքան, բայց կուզեի ասել, որ եթե ավելի դերեկություն կուզեք ստանալ մեր գետրոններուն, մեր գործունեության մասին, ունենք մեր website, which is AGBU Hye.org, ունենք մեր Facebook-ի page-ը, որ Hye Geen, AGBU Hye Geen, եւ նույն Instagram page։ Եվ այս օրերուն ունենք fundraising, քանի որ պետք ունենք ավելորդ օգնության, որպեսզի մեր գետրոնները մատակարարեն։ Շատ շնորհակալ ենք, որ եկած եք եւ այսօր մեզի գոգնեք եւ եկած եք հիմա ուրեմն որ օբիդիկա մերսի։
Ուրեմն այսօր թե անտերեն թե հայերեն կոսինք եւ we'll mix it up, make it interactive. Hope you'll take a few things today and take it home and maybe look a little bit more intelligent in with your family members and show off, right? So It's interesting, you're going to hear a little bit about investing, a little bit about establishing a business, and a little bit about real estate. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to learn a little bit myself as well. I'm going to start by saying that, I want to put a differentiation right from the start between, being a depositor and being an investor, right? So we've got a very strong, robust banking system, and being a depositor is being a taker, right? You deposit your money in a saving or checking account. They give you whatever interest it is. Nowadays, it's very low, almost 0%. And then you're a taker, right? You take what the bank gives you. And usually, a depositor is someone who says, hey, I want my money to be safe in the bank. I like the FDIC insurance, and I'll live with it. When you step across that boundary of being an investor, you're giving yourself the title of a CEO in charge of your investments, right? You're saying, I want to be in charge of investing across the wide array of investments out there, whether it's from a simple money market to stocks, to bonds, to alternatives, to real estate, whatever it's out there. It's a very wide array of investments which gives you returns, but also you have to be very cognizant of the risks out there. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to marry the world of investment with the world of planning, given that I'm a planner at the same time, because I want you to know that if you're an investor, you have to have certain goals in your life, whether they're 1 or 2 or 3, right? I see in the audience various people at various ages, and so I want to be sure that I address people that might have different goals in their life at various stages in their lives, right? If you're a 20-year-old, you've got different goals, and you have to have certain goals where you save and invest towards those goals. So, Alina, let's go to the slide about the goals, please. This one? Exactly. So these are just a few of the goals which we use in our practice. And what I'd like you to do is, when you go home, or if you're taking any notes, just pick a couple of these goals which are important to you. If you're trying to buy a house or pay your mortgage early, right, or upgrading your house into the future, I know for a lot of the young folks, it's very, very difficult nowadays to save or invest towards a house. A lot of older folks have struggling with healthcare costs, right? So they're worried about healthcare in their retirement years. Leisure. A lot of people like to travel more when they're in their retirement years. So I see a lot of this as a separate line item when we're planning for people nearing retirement. They say, I want to travel more. Please could you budget a different line item for me in retirement for travel? Because we'd like to travel more around the world. A lot of people say I'm caring for an elderly family member, right? And we know in the U.S., caring for an elderly family is a very expensive undertaking, and that's very important. For a lot of people, giving is important. So I had a client come to me the other day and said, in memory of my mom, I want to establish an endowment at the university. So I factored that into his planning. And we made sure that we had that as part of his financial plan. And AGBU, if you look at their pamphlets, at the end of every pamphlet, they have all the giving at their endowment fund. They list everyone, and I love that about AGBU because they acknowledge the giving that every person has done throughout the decades. So just take a couple of these and make sure you have goals in your life which you're investing towards. Otherwise, investing on its own is just an engine without the chassis, right? You have to have a car which has a chassis, but also has an engine. The engine is what really drives the car, right? Which powers the car, but the goals are the destination. Goals are the destination. Alina, why don't you go to the expense worksheet for me? This one right here, exactly. So this is very important as well. I encourage every family, every individual, whether you're married or not, just to know where your money is going, right? What your sources of income is at different stages of your life, and what you're spending the money on. And, you know, initially, if you're an employee, you probably have a W-2 income. And if you want a copy of this, see me after, you know, the event, and I'll email this to you. And you can have an electronic copy of this, and you can fill it out for yourself. A lot of people have businesses as well, so it's business income, real estate income, pension, social security, etc. And then all the different expense line items, right? Whether it's mortgage, entertainment, travel, childcare. If you can go to the next page, car payments. Armenians drive expensive cars, right? So car payments, car insurance, right? Car insurance is a huge expense right now. But I tell you on the next page, go to the next page, Alina, of this expense worksheet. That same page, yep, go scroll down. All right, a little higher, a little higher. Okay, one of the expenses here is insurance, right? Property insurance. I'm hearing this more and more, especially people living on hillsides, Pasadena, La Crescenta, La Cañada, anyone living on hillsides. I just got a call yesterday from a friend of mine saying his insurance was canceled. Insurance is now becoming a major expense item. And he said, I can't afford not to have insurance on my home, but I'll have to cut from other expenses, probably traveling less with my family and doing and having other expenses. So it's very important to have this. You can do this on an Excel sheet. You can have an app, probably download an app. There are a lot of free apps out there. But make sure you are in control of your expenses, because you have to have today's expenses under control and try to see if you can project them down the road. Some of these expenses are fixed, like your mortgage, right? If you have a fixed mortgage, that's fixed. If you have life insurance premiums, those are fixed. But you have other expenses, like we saw over the past couple of years. Inflation really took a lot of these expenses up, right? Imagine going into a restaurant nowadays, right? Your bill, which was like $100, now it's like $150, right? So a lot of these expenses started going up. So just make sure you're in control of your expenses, because once you have your goals defined and your expenses defined, you're like the CEO of your family, okay? Then you have your balance sheet and you have your income statement, and then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to project them into the future, and you'll be able to see whether you're able to meet your goals or not. Okay, so this is extremely important before you start investing. Okay, now Alina, let's go to asset allocation. All right, now this one here. This is a very simple, basic slide which shows you that all the different asset classes out there, right, which you can invest in. And the one on the very end, a lot of you have that, cash equivalents, whether they're CDs, treasuries, money market funds. A very simple way. I mean, if you guys have deposits at the bank, just open a brokerage account and invest it in a money market fund, a treasury money market fund, and you'll see going from 0 to 4% right away. So just make sure you do that, because otherwise you'll just have the money earning 0 at the bank. Just make sure you do that, because that's free money for you right there. Now, in stocks, you've got a wide array of ways to invest in stocks. You can do individual stocks, exchange-traded fund, mutual funds, separately managed accounts, and a wide array of ways to do that. Just make sure you're diversified, and we'll talk about that. Under fixed income, everyone knows what CDs are, right? Certificates of deposits, they're FDIC insured. And treasuries, we had a huge interest in treasuries over the past few years. And just know that treasuries don't pay state income tax on treasuries. That's why a lot of people started piling into treasuries over the past 2 years. Municipal bonds, for those of you in the high tax brackets, triple tax-free in California, mortgage backs, etc. And then for sophisticated investors, you've got AI, alternative investments ranging from hedge funds, private equity, and then commodities such as gold. We know gold is nearing $3,000 because of all these geopolitical risks, etc. Private real estate, or real estate if you do it on your own. So these are all very important. And the most important stuff is you got to be diversified. Just don't stick to one asset class. Make sure that you invest in asset classes which move in opposite directions when the markets get volatile. You know, we've had a nice 2 years in the markets. People are very confident that, you know, and they're very complacent at the same time. But, you know, sometimes the markets get choppy. And make sure you're diversified with asset classes such as stocks, bonds, and different investments, which move in different directions when the markets are volatile, so that you can protect the downside of your portfolio. All right. So, you guys are good so far?
Yes.
All right? Okay. Now, let's look at a few other things here. I know I should stick to like 20 minutes here. So, all right. Let's go to the PowerPoint, Alina, number 36, please. Okay. Right, this is an interesting chart. It shows you the market performance all the way from the 40s, okay? Now, the small red drawdowns over here shows you that the markets can really get nasty, right? I mean, the market pullbacks when, and the one you can relate to the most was the housing bubble, right, in 2008, okay? And that pullback took 17 months, okay? Now remember that after that, we had a huge bull market, and that bull market took 131 months and took the market up 400%, okay? Now, to be an investor, remember, I differentiated at the very start between a depositor and an investor. To be an investor, you have to have some education in the markets, right? You have to know that these pullbacks happen over time, but you have to stick to your guns and know that these happen far and away, right, and apart. But when they do happen, you have to stay in the market because they snap back right away, and then your recovery is very fierce. And bull markets last for a very long time. And you can see that. And on average, they last about 5 years, about over 60 months. Okay? And the average return of a bull market is 177% over these 5-year periods. Okay? So the bear markets usually last about 13 months, right over a year. So this is extremely important to understand that as a stock investor, you will have these periodic declines in the market, but the recovery is very important. Also want, Aline, go to 38, please. This is my favorite chart, by the way. This chart here in the bottom. This is a chart from the 1970s, okay? And this chart shows you that the majority of the time, the market is positive, right? This is these dark blue bars over here shows you that the market is positive almost over 70% of the time. And periodically, you've got these pullbacks. But the red dots is the most important, okay? Every single year, you will have a pullback. Every single year. It's natural. And the markets on average will pull back 14% on average. So when you're an investor, it's part of the show. If you're a fisherman, you know you're going to hit waves, okay? So if you're in the markets, you could have a year where the market's down 20%, but you could close positive 20%, okay? Even in 1987, when you had the Black Monday, right? Where's 1987? Right over here. The market was down over 40% and it closed positive. Okay? That's where an experienced investor comes in. I want you to educate yourselves about the market, right? Read about the markets, educate yourself about the markets, and make sure that you're in this for the long term. There's a huge differentiation between a trader and an investor. A trader is someone who's in and out of the markets on a daily basis, and an investor is someone who's in that for the long term. If you're an investor, you have to know about these ins and outs over the weeks, months, and years. Okay? And that's on average Stocks will get you about 8 to 10%, bonds will get you about 3 to 4%, and cash will get you anywhere between 2 and 3%. And if you know these metrics, you'll be a successful investor. And in the US, Alina, could you go to 21? All right. Now I see some older folks in the room and a lot of young folks in the room, right? And the older folks in the room in the 1990s, there was no Apple, there was no Google, right? The market was concentrated in names like Exxon. This was the S&P. The concentration of the S&P in 1990, your largest holdings was Exxon, GE, IBM, AT&T, Altria, right? Look at that. Not a single, like the single tech name out there was IBM. And that was probably the IBM terminals in the supermarkets, right? Okay, now look at quarter 3, 2024, S&P concentration, right? You see how tech has dominated the S&P on a market cap basis. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google. That's over, and if you include some of the consumer discretionary names, then you're probably over 50% in tech names. Like if you include some other tech names in here, you're over 50%. So you've got to be a little careful when you're investing in the S&P and think you're diversified. You're probably over concentrated already in the tech space. Okay, so but I have an analogy here. It's very interesting to be an investor. Let's say you're driving in your Tesla and you get a call from your wife on your iPhone on an AT&T line while you're going to Costco, and then on your way you go to Home Depot, right? And then what? Right? See all these companies? Actually, as an investor, you are actually purchasing ownership shares in real companies that sell real products and services, right? Okay? Think of it that way. So you were an owner. You wish you were an owner of the entire company, right? Apple or Google or Amazon. But the capitalist system in the US has allowed us to become shareholders in the success of the largest companies, not only in the US, but globally. And we have the most innovative minds in the world. And think of that over the next decades as you invest. And now with the advent of AI, right? There's going to be so much more innovation, but also think of it in terms of the risks. Okay? That's why I say, and Alina, I want you to go to slide number, I believe it's slide number 24. No, that's not the one. 40, sorry. We couldn't have the computer here on our podium, so, all right. We've got a team which does thematic investing. They try to look at the next decades and try to identify emerging themes, okay? And one thing they were able to look at this, and I'm very much interested in what the World Economic Forum comes up with. And the World Economic Forum has come up with this idea. It's called polycrisis. They're trying to find out with interlinked crises around the world, whether it's demographics, whether they're new, new healthcare risks coming out, okay, new geopolitical risks, etc. So one of the themes they have identified is the risk of security and the amount of dollars being piled into defense. Now note that the amount of money being piled into defense by developed countries is only 2.3% of GDP. And 2.3% of GDP could be a very small amount, but it's in the billions of dollars. And they're talking about how much that's going to increase over the next few years. So the other day, an asset manager walks into my office and introduces a new ETF called Shield. So they introduced the ETF, an exchange-traded fund named Shield. And when I looked at this product, it was so personal to me. It was, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This was very personal to me. The reason was because we as Armenians were victim of very sophisticated war in Artsakh, with drones and ammunition which was tried on our territory by defense companies, and I was looking into all these companies which comprised this ETF, and I did come across a couple of manufacturers which were not as friendly to Armenians in that makeup. Now, mind you that this area of defense spending is going to be a major attraction of capital over the next decades. We're seeing what's happening in Ukraine, we're seeing what's happening in the Middle East. And those developed countries which have the resources to invest in defense and modern defense are going to have multiples more advancement over those countries which are lagging behind. So that's one theme which we see. And look at the backlog. Look at the backlog of all companies in the US, right? In 2023, more than $800 billion of backlog orders from defense spending. So cybersecurity is another theme. There's a lot of companies out there from cybersecurity, right, that we're spending on, and that's a major threat, right? Especially US companies are investing huge amounts in cybersecurity because they're always under attack by either Chinese or Russian threats. Surveillance, infrastructure is a big theme as well as countries and companies invest in modern infrastructure, whether it's data centers, educational centers, etc. So that said, I'm not going to go on and on here because we can, but what I want to conclude with is the following: have a plan, bring your expenses under control. Try to make sure that your investing is tied to your goals, and then understand the markets and educate yourself. If you need a couple of these resources like the expense worksheet, goals worksheet, let me know. I'll be happy to send them to you. And then we'll have. I think we're going to have a Q&A session right at the end. So we'll stick to this and we'll ask you your questions. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And let me tell you, half of the wealth in the U.S. is controlled by women, and a lot of my demanding clients are women. So congratulations to you, and thank you, Hye Geen, for this opportunity.
My name is Armand Yerjanian, and I'm very excited to kind of talk to you about what I'm up to personally in my career, and how that also helps kind of explain how we can make wealth outside of just investing or the traditional way of real estate. So here we go. Okay, so when I was preparing this presentation, I was trying to figure out kind of where did my interest and shift of thought really kind of happen. And I've always loved to read, I've always kind of liked to write. And so starting in 2018-19, I started an online blog. It's called The Pomegranate Seed. And in there I wrote kind of rambles and thoughts of things that I thought would be great for new ways of thinking of economics, to help Armenia, technology, and everything that I kind of thought I was interested in and no one would really care to read. So I thought it would be a good exercise. And this is actually my last post, and it's in 2020, and it's kind of me yelling at myself. and that's what usually blogs are. And really it was, my goal with the pomegranate seed was to be cynically optimistic, and really what that means is to question, but to have a reason of going forward for those questionings. And at that time in 2020, everyone's mindset, everyone's kind of reality changed with what happened in Artsakh. And for me, that was a big serious concern. So I could no longer be cynically optimistic because things were changing so quickly. And for everything that I've kind of grown up with and the experiences that I've had, the people, the places that I've been, for me, my epicenter is Armenia. And so back in 2020, I had kind of a mind shift of how do I make all of what I'm doing not just an individual exercise or an event, but how do I combine my career and how do I combine sort of what I want to do successfully as a businessman all in one place at home. And so at the end of it, there's a really good tip that in 2020 I kind of found, and I've followed that ever since, and that'll be at the end of this presentation. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is like my career roadmap and where I've gone and why I am today. I started here at AGBU. When I say here, I mean as a little kid, as a scout, as basketball. I live 5 minutes away. So literally this is my second home. So my kind of interests have always been Armenian. And in Cal Poly Pomona, I had the unique opportunity to, as a finance student, since we're a heavy engineering school at Cal Poly Pomona, they had this commercialization program with NASA, where engineering students and business students would work together, and they would kind of come up with entrepreneurial business ideas, going through NASA's humongous list of inventions and patents, and essentially giving academics and different students the opportunity to build technology and actually build companies. So in college, I had a very unique experience where my mentor was actually kind of, he was actually a Turkish professor. And so again, all of this was interesting for me because everything was kind of hitting me very quickly as to what I could achieve. And I didn't want to be buried under numbers as a finance student. I wanted to apply what that actually mean and how I can actually work with other people. And when I saw engineers wiring smallest of different wirings through shirts and coming up with different sensor like data and building things that I can't even think of, I wanted to be involved. And that's kind of where I thought to myself, I can find an application for what I think I'm good at. And everyone has that ability. If you're into data, if you're into reading and writing, if you're into speaking, these soft skills really help you kind of also determine where you want to end up. So I ended up from Cal Poly actually going straight into NASA JPL, where I worked for 2 years in the science division, and there I was surrounded by the most arrogant and brightest and most crazy scientists you would imagine. And it was purely an opportunity for me to see what like pure creativity was. And it was a playground for people who really sacrificed kind of their professional goals. Because at JPL, you're not making the same amount of money if you are at the private industry. And so there was a saying there, and I just got in as a college student where, you're going to meet someone who's going to probably pass away at their desk. And that was a running joke at JPL, where like the engineers and the scientists, they cared so much about what they wanted to achieve, the curiosity, that that was exciting for me. And I, always kind of grew up with that same curiosity, but not too technically, more on kind of the effects of how technology interacts with us. And ultimately, I was focused on how can I make money off of this, or how can I build, how can I work with these engineers, and how can I find my place in all of that. And so in 2016, or as I was at NASA JPL and at Cal Poly, AGBU London internship program started, and I believe that was 2013 or 14 or whenever I attended. I was still in college. I was working as like a college student at NASA JPL as well. and it was a really amazing opportunity for me as well to go through the internship program with AGBU, and I really got to see kind of the world in London. It was very unique in a sense where my mentors had like both in finance, both in like different places in the industry, and I was really able to kind of meet a lot of different sort of coworkers, colleagues, mentors, and different businesses that I was seeing. And that was my first experience in a trading room, working with not just scientists anymore, but investment professionals, traders, the same types of people you see on movies, and really being able to, how do I find my place there? Again, that was a journey all throughout of itself, and that's when I realized I'm not going to be a scientist all day, and they don't pay too well at a government business admin job, but I took a lot of the experiences of the entrepreneurial expertise and kind of the innovations that I was seeing at JPL, and I flipped that over and took a role at TCW Group here in Los Angeles. Is a very traditional investment management group. They have a bond desk, a fixed income desk. They have emerging markets desk. And I actually ended up not being a trader, but being in the operational side. And that to me was also a journey in seeing in everyone's industry, there's kind of the superstars, there's the all-stars. You have, everyone wants to be an anesthesiologist. But you could also be a pediatrician and do something very specific and be really, really successful. And in finance, it's the same thing. Everyone wants to be an investment banker. Everyone wants to be, a trader at the highest level. But there's success points where I was actually able to grow a niche and, find a path for me too. All of that, I was always edging on my seat. How do I figure out, how do I get involved in Armenia? And there was so much I was learning and being exposed to. How do I figure this out? And so just through the AGBU connections, through our friends, we're all kind of poking at ourselves as how do we build something together? What kind of things can we do? And me surrounding myself with technologists, I was able to kind of understand what they were saying, speak their lingo. And by the time it was 2018, I was still working at TCW. There was a velvet revolution in Armenia. Lots of changes were happening. And an interesting program came out from the Ministry of Diaspora at the time. And it was this program called Neruj. Now it's 5.0. We were 1.0. And in the winter of 2019 or 2018, I, with a couple of friends, applied. And the whole purpose of Neruj was for you to, as a diasporan, come to Armenia, start a business, pitch competition, entrepreneurial sessions, helping you understand how you can build a business in Armenia and be exposed globally. And they had cash prize winners. They had investments that they would make in these companies. And it was a really successful program. And we applied with two companies. One of them want to focus more. It's applicable to also what Raffi was saying. But we started Aluria Security, and it's four of good friends of mine, all different parts of the world, all met in Armenia, from Egypt, from Canoga Park, from Pasadena, and all different parts of the world. And so really kind of starting our first exercise in this and jumping and really scaring a lot of my friends, my parents. I took a full force risk and I said, you know what, I'm gonna quit my comfortable job. Oh, it's starting to work now? That's great. Can we go back?
Well, you could. Go back.
Oh, there's the back button. Oh, it's starting to work. Great, this is great. Okay, so we'll just fast forward here. All that to say is I started my first kind of business, Aluria Security, in 2018. And ever since then, I've had this focus on making sure where I put all the learnings I've made, all the expertise I've gotten, I do not personally want to make another company lots of extra dollars or billions of dollars. I'm more interested in taking everything I'm learning and the people we're working with and really exploring what we can achieve using Armenia as a stepping stone. And for those who have been there recently, you kind of see that feeling, the energy. There's so much happening in Armenia today, but 5 years ago, really there was a few who actually moved. There was a few like me who quit their jobs to pursue 100% kind of that dream. But really, all of it to say, it's not charity in Armenia, right? It's not charity to run your business. And that's one thing I want to kind of also mention to you is a lot of this is hard to do. And the next slide will kind of talk about what are the steps of how do you start one, how do you raise some money. But all kind of 4 of these points kind of point to where I am today. And look, it doesn't have to be all serious. If you really, really like to, I don't know, draw, if you're into makeup, if you're into, there's so much now that is being exposed, especially with our young generation, that you can find your focus and make that what you want to do. And that's why it's really hard today, young people, I'm sure your parents you hear, it's hard for me to find a job, I can't get a job, I don't like to do what they're telling me to do. And a lot of the reasons why is because young people, we're passion-filled. And it's hard for us to figure out where do we put those passions. And, if you want to take a risk, starting your own business, and maybe starting it, with the thought of being in Armenia or working with Armenians in the diaspora, it's a little safer to start. So, moving forward, this is kind of the risk and reward. Over 5 years, lots of money, lots of failures, lots of successes, but a lot of it's kind of like where we want it to be, right? Working with groups like Teach for Armenia as I've grown, helping them with kind of their operations and endowment fund strategies, starting my own soccer team in Armenia, and having 80 young kids in Bike Vanadzor now have a club every day they can do and be a part of. That's something that was kind of crazy, and now we're doing it. And then on kind of the professional side with Cartes and what we're doing with Illyria Security is representing Armenia at the global stages, and this was at the International Astronomical Congress in Milan. So Armenia is also starting to invest in its diaspora. And again, I tell you this with a full kind of confidence. It's not easy. I know it's hard to work with others in general. It's also hard to work with Armenians, but it's an investment. When a lot of people say, oh, I've tried to start something in Armenia, it hasn't worked, it's the same risk here, right? So again, I urge you to find something that you connect yourself here and maybe do it in Armenia as well, right? And another cool fun fact too is through our company Cartes, we're able to be involved with some of the future satellite technologies and commercial and non-commercial projects that we, not just as the government, but as private businessmen, multiple Armenians around the world have left what they've done and are now in Armenia or across the world kind of working for those kind of security-related, kind of future-focused on protecting what we have, right? So that's also incredible to be a part of. And, ultimately, you want to be mission-driven. And I mentioned this again. Why do young people now want to work for others? Why for themselves? One, as Armenians, we have a really good example of our parents literally working 3 to 4 jobs, putting a lot of emphasis on school, on being successful, and I think that's because of, the most importantly, we want to build a strong community. We've always been moving around, and by being kind of focused on ourselves, I think has been in a one-way good thing. Now, 33 years we have a country, a lot of that is going back. It's facilitating all of what we've learned is kind of starting to grow there. Another thing that a lot of young kids want, me included, freedom, flexibility. I want to not be 9 to 5 at a job or have the ability to, work from home. These are real factors now that young people are putting consideration and deciding on what to do. And so, if you don't want to work for someone, you don't want to make anyone else money, again, the real option is to start your own business, and it's to start something that you can do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you kind of like costs and how to price something. That's not the point. The first thing you have to decide is I'm ready to take a risk on myself. I'm ready to put myself out there, and ultimately that's why a lot of young people today, they'd rather make money using their phones by creating content, by blogging, because they don't want to be confined. Ultimately, for other people's, agendas, however you say, there's a lot going on that young people today too. The internet helps us. We've been born with technology. Now our friends' kids, they're born with knowing how to swipe their phones. So a lot of this is going to be true. And I think being able to make sure, if someone is, for example, playing video games all day, that was 15 years ago, was really, worrying. Parents be like, and now there are literal, the same kids that were playing are now professionals and are making millions of dollars. And they have fans, and they have a following, and they are, stars in a lot of ways. So as parents, as friends, as colleagues, encourage others to fulfill their passions, because there is always a way to make money out of what you really like to do. And again, here's a little bit more technical things. How do you start a business and how do you fund it? Obviously, you can put your own money. That's the first step. There's friends and family who will take a risk on you, who will invest in you. There are ways where you can sell shares of your company and bring on partners who you think are going to either help you grow, help you stabilize, help you raise more money. Other ways too. How do I then become successful out of this company? Ultimately, there are founders and businesses that they just want to sell. They want to grow and they want to exit and they want to go and retire. And then there are people that spend their entire lives doing something and there's no way to zachen, right? So there are two ways of thought process as well. And again, I think not as frequently thought about, but inventions, inventors, developers. I think another great way of making money from your business is licensing what you do, right? And so if you build some sort of technology stack that you can, sell to other businesses to use, perfect. That's something you can make money off of, frequently. And step 4, obviously, is kind of like what a lot of us founders want to do, is take their companies, build it, scale it, have hundreds of thousands of users, have successful customer stories, and ultimately go public, take your company to the New York Stock Exchange, to NASDAQ, or even the Armenian Stock Exchange, for some who want to use it, which is also a budding place. Now, as I fast forward, okay, so there's investing, how Raffi just talked about. There's real estate investing, as you will see later. But ultimately, for me, the biggest aha moment, especially when I was at my AGBU internship in London, was the most wealthy people own. They build their companies. And these are just a list of all successful, on this top 10 most, I'd say, wealthiest individuals. All of them own or built the company that made them who they are, right? Her name's cut out, but her name's Melanie Perkins. She's the co-founder of Canva, which is the actual software I use to build this presentation. And now she's a billionaire, right? So we're having, so much wealth being created from businesses that are starting, from people using technology in different ways, from people creating legacy businesses and taking them to the 21st century. Even the floral shops in Glendale are making millions of dollars, as I know some of you are aware. So just about how passionate you are, how, ultimately you have to build it. If you want to be the most successful in what you do, you have to start your own business and take it all the way to the top. And kind of my biggest influence and someone I always like to study is Alex Manoukian, founder of AGBU. And interestingly enough, he was able to build what we see today and leave a legacy for all future Armenians because he was a successful businessman. He took his company public. Masco today, I put very simple appreciation. In 1960, when he was at the helm, at the prime, if you look at it today, the stock still exists. It's up 8,000%. And so that's the most important takeaway I want you all to go with, is to be the most wealthy, whatever that means to you, to be happy, to be successful, to work with people you want to work with, on missions that you want to be a part of. You have to start it yourself. And that's the biggest thing as well that I saw with people like Alex Manoukian, right? Okay, now kind of the last big slide and point. Am I just saying things because I'm a passionate person, I love Armenia? No, I mean, we have companies, we're working diligently, but there are success stories, right? One of them being Service Titan in Glendale on Brand. They have a humongous building. And they're about to go public. Markets get better. Hopefully we all buy their IPO, because their success is our success as Armenia. They now have massive amounts of influence in Armenia, building the next generation of developers, education, community building. Their office is really, really nice on Cascade now. But that's the bridge that I kind of wanted to have you vision. And it's something where you can go back and forth with. It's not something that can just stay in isolation. And ServiceTitan is the best example of how do you become a global US company serving the top, let's say, plumbing and electric and contracting companies, and still, as Armenian founders, what Ala and Vahe do is just remarkable, right? And for me, as someone who's watched them grow and gotten some of the experience and watching their roadmap, it's exciting because it's hopeful, right? If someone like them can do it, we all can do it, right? And that's, again, another piece I want to share with you. Statistics are always fun for us finance nerds, but Armenia's growing. If it wasn't for the pandemic, we would have an extremely strong and stable growth rate in Armenia. And it's again, ever changing. We know what's happening in Armenia. We know there's so much going back and forth, but ultimately the country itself is growing. And one of the real fun and most important parts of why Armenia is growing, especially in tech industry, is the oversaturation of women developers, of females. They are our leaders in Armenia. They are running from technology teams to design teams to business development. There's a CFA certification, which is a Chartered Financial Analyst. Out of all the Eastern European countries, Armenia has the most CFA chartered, and 55% of them are women. So, top risk analyst, credit analyst, your kind of deputy of the Central Bank of Armenia, all of them are just as qualified, just as important in what they're doing as the people here, right? So I want you all to take that away. And there are massive companies in Armenia. Synopsys being there since the beginning, and that's another AGBU board member, Dr. Zoryan. And I've had family in Armenia actually graduate Synopsys University, now working for Synopsys. We have companies like NVIDIA who just entered Armenia last year. All of this, by the way, with Armenian executives or Armenian employees of these companies pushing their firms and telling them this is the place we should invest, this is the place where we should build a team, where we should, for NVIDIA, spend $8 to $10 million and build a data center, right? These are important investments. Airbus now entering the Armenian market, as we see France and Armenia becoming closer and closer. These are huge steps for us, both for travel, aviation, telecommunications, and recently, Colliers, which is a massive real estate company, just won a bid to build like Armenia's World Trade Center, which is a $300 million project, right? So Armenia itself is growing. It's offering the world opportunities and projects. It's inviting others to participate. And we as Armenians, as much as we focus on the diaspora, as much as we're focused here, remember there's always something to do, Hayastan. And if you're ever figuring out what can I do next, it's a great place for you to be looking. Okay. So, when I talked about the tip, right? The biggest tip I had was changing the world without any money is a fool's errand. Do you know who really influences the world we live in? Yes, it's the folks with money. Make money first. Change the world later. Follow the path that allows you to grow, right? So, thank you all. I hope this was a little bit motivational. I know the other speakers have much more technical insights and advice, but I wanted you all to kind of take away with what young people today are feeling, what some of us are a part of, and the opportunities that hopefully it grows and furthers our country. Thank you.
Armand, Yerjanian, thank you. Marshall Country from Zoryan.
Şuna Galcun, I don't have any slides, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about real estate, and I'll try to connect the conversation to. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. To the previous conversations as well, because I think they're all related. So I'm Zoryan. My background is in real estate, private equity, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm also a very active investor, so everything that I do ties through the conversations that we're having today. My journey has been mostly in finance, so I'm a real estate person, but I spend most of my career in financial organizations, and most of it all actually will be really just with one organization, with Morgan Stanley, which I recently left. And
we can't hear.
You can't hear? Is that better? So my background is entirely in real estate, private equity investing. So the chart that Raffi put up earlier had all the different investment types. At the bottom, there was what he called strategic investing, which that's really the alternatives investment side of the various different ways to invest your money. And real estate is an asset class inside of alternative investments. So in alternatives, you can invest in private equity funds, you can invest in hedge funds, you can invest in commodities of certain types, you can invest in real estate, real assets, etc. And so that's where that little piece of the world is where I've spent most of my career. Generally, it's maybe sort of a 10%, right? You know, if you're 50% in equities or 30-40% in fixed income and cash, and then there's sort of this 10% piece that gets invested in alternatives, and that's where I spent most of my time. So I will talk a little bit about that. My background real quickly is I went to USC undergrad. I actually went to USC to be an entrepreneur. I quickly, I loved the entrepreneur program. I did that, actually did the real estate development program. And then I spent 25 years at a Wall Street firm. So I didn't use my entrepreneurial education per se to do that. And really the story that I have from a professional perspective really is around being a contrarian and investing when others don't want to do certain things, because that's when you can probably find the best opportunities. And I joke because when I applied for the real estate program at USC in 1992-93, there were, the year before me, there were 100 applications for 25 spots. But the real estate recession was really, really deep in the early 90s, for those of you who remember that. And my year, there was 10 applications for 25 spots. So I had a really, really good chance of getting it. And clearly, I think the point, though, is that class of the 10 of us have gone on to do incredible things in the real estate industry all over the world. And I think that's a point that is, there was so few people that went into real estate those years that, to this day, I still believe that contrarian decision really propelled me in a very thoughtful way. So anyway, a little bit of my background. I actually did do investment banking. I did that for a number of years. I think it's a wonderful place to learn for those of you who have an interest in that, or have interest, or children who have interest in that. It is a wonderful place to learn. It's a wonderful place to really get a very intense education in finance. And then some people really like it and stay there, and some people will find their ways into corporate or private equity or other investing areas. So that's a little bit of the background. My real estate experience, I started as an analyst working in real estate investing. So what I was doing is doing all the modeling, all the financial modeling, all the analytics. And then from there, over the course of a number of years, I eventually became co-head of our acquisitions for the United States for our funds. And I became eventually the head of asset management, which is the operating side of our business. And the group that I was a part of was a $40 or so billion equity investing business in the United States, actually global, but my role was in the Americas. And so we saw every type of real estate asset. We saw many different types of structures and partnerships. I worked on over 550 individual real estate assets throughout my career, with 25 to 30 different joint venture partners with many, many, many third parties. One that was just mentioned was Colliers, as an example, is a very large service provider in our business.